the gym, there's all kinds of starting loadouts. There's the super fat guy who can start out just benching 2 plates for some reason, skinny, emaciated, on the brink of death, and completely unable to bench the bar. That one kid who for some reason just starts out absolutely jacked and repping out 40-pound dumbbells for his curls. And then, most commonly, and what we're going to be talking about in this video, skinny fat. Trying to make progress in the gym when you start out skinny fat can be kind of like trying to spec into 2 skill trees at the same time, that being losing fat and gaining muscle. It's kind of f***ed up because they have completely different grinding strategies. And then on top of that, if you get the balance or order wrong, you'll either end up with a shitty build or take way longer to progress than you otherwise could have. Throughout my life, I've somehow managed to be fat, skinny, and skinny fat. So regardless of where you're starting out, if you're on this channel, you're in the right place. To kick things off, let's fundamentally define what being skinny fat is from a body composition perspective. I think the simplest definition for being skinny fat is someone whose body weight for their height is fairly low, yet they have a pretty high body fat percentage. In other words, you have virtually no muscle mass, but you got a decent amount of chub on you. With your shirt on, you look fairly thin and fragile, and then you take it off and you somehow look fat. Now, since you obviously don't want to be skinny fat, I'm going to lay out the options you have to progress, and then guide you through what I think the best route is to escape the skinny fat zone. So there's 3 different options here. You can cut and lower your weight, maintain your weight, or bulk and increase your weight. The only thing that's going to change between these 3 options is the diet. Now, being skinny fat, your first inclination might be to go on a cut, that way you get all the fat off. Now take this from me as someone who had to go on a 1 to 2 year long cut as soon as they got started in the gym. You should only really start out in a cut if you are very fat or overweight, like genuinely obese. If you're chubby or even just a bit on the fatter side, I would strongly advise you against cutting off the bat. When it comes to building an attractive and aesthetic physique, the sole purpose of cutting is revealing the muscle that you've already built. The problem when you're skinny fat is you currently don't have any muscle built, and while it is possible to put on some amount of muscle mass in a deficit, which to some extent is what I ended up doing, it is painfully slow. Constant plateaus, increased risk of injury, and after a few months, progress significantly slows down, even slower than it already was. Your body needs nutrients in order to build new muscle tissue, and when you're in a calorie deficit, you're essentially depriving yourself of that. Now, since cutting most definitely is not the best option to start out, that leaves us with maintaining our weight and bulking. Maintenance phases do have their role in building your physique, and if deployed correctly can be extremely beneficial. Off the top of my head, the most ideal circumstances to go through a maintenance phase are times when you just need a diet break and you kind of want to up your calories for a little bit, reset your hunger, and maybe put back on a bit of the strength you lost, or if you're already jacked and you just need a break from dieting altogether and you're just trying to stay kind of where you're at. For new lifters, it is possible to undergo body recomposition, which is where you eat at your maintenance calorie intake, and then as you're progressing in the gym, your body pulls nutrients from your stored fat tissue and uses that to build new muscle mass, leading to your weight staying the same while your body composition improves. And while this is a viable option, it's not the best option because, again, the rate of progress you're going to make in the gym is going to be pretty slow. So all we're left with is option 3. Bulking. Now this is by far the best option for a few reasons. When I was starting out in the gym, I wish I was skinny fat so that way I could have immediately started out in a bulk. Since you're supplying your body with a surplus of nutrients, your body's going to have a pretty easy time building new muscle tissue combined with the fact that you're a new lifter. In other words, out of all 3 of these options, this one is going to allow you to put on the most muscle tissue at the fastest rate. Now you may be thinking to yourself, well, I'm skinny fat. I don't really want to put on any excess fat by gaining weight. This is where the importance of your diet really shines. I think when most people think of bulking, they kind of envision guys like Sam Solek who are drinking like 2 liters of chocolate milk as soon as they wake up. Unfortunately for you, you're probably not a professional bodybuilder on grams of gear, so odds are you're not going to be able to get away with that. What you should do is calculate your maintenance calories on an online calculator, and then add 250 to 500 calories on top of your maintenance. That way your weight gain will be around a half a pound to a pound a week. You want to keep your diet as clean as possible and eat single ingredient whole foods while achieving a protein intake of at least 1 gram per pound of body weight. This, combined with the fact that you are brand new to the gym and you'll be able to achieve something called newbie gains, will allow you to not only rapidly make progress and put on muscle, the fat gain will be extremely minimal. The amount of muscle tissue you'll be able to put on will outweigh the fat tissue in most cases, as long as your diet and training are actually on point. So while you may not get thinner, your overall build will kind of even out and you'll slowly start to get a little bit of a V-taper going. Arms will fill out, back will get bigger, get some crazy ass legs going, build up your core a bit too. That way when we get to the next phase, your abs are gonna pop even more. You're not gonna look crazy during this phase unless you're an absolute genetic phenom, but you're gonna look a little less like an alien. You should be training hard. The best training split to adopt for beginners, and what I personally use, is the push-pull legs training split. On one day, you do chest and triceps or push day. Another day, you do back and biceps or pull day. And then for the third day, you hit legs. Then, if you feel like you need a rest day because your chest is still too sore, take a rest day, and then the next day, hit your chest again. And then what I personally do is I kind of sprinkle in abs, calves, and shoulders throughout these 3 days where it makes sense. So for example, on pull day, I'll hit rear delt. On push day, I'll hit front delt and side delt. And then on leg day, I do my abs and calves. You should apply the principles of progressive overload and increase the intensity of your training over time. This could be through adding more sets, adding more reps, or adding more weight to your workouts. You shouldn't be scared of putting on a little bit of fat during this period, simply because mathematically, your body fat percentage might actually improve during this period. In a bit of an extreme example, but it kind of helped it make sense for me. No one's looking at like powerlifters who have a ton of muscle and a good amount of fat on them and is thinking to themselves, ugh, they're kind of fat, man. They need to work on getting in shape. Like, powerlifters are essentially perma-bulkers. Like, if this guy went on a serious cut, he would be a crazy ass bodybuilder. So you do this for at least 6 months. Let's say you put on about 15 pounds, 10 pounds of muscle and 5 pounds of fat during this period. Good job. You now have a base that you can actually cut down and start to look pretty fucking good. So now we can move into the fun part, or depending on how you look at it, the worst part. Cutting. But essentially, you want to train exactly how you were when you were bulking. However, this time around, you're probably not going to be able to increase your performance as much, if at all. While you're cutting, you can consider it a win to just maintain your strength. You're essentially just going to be doing the opposite of what you were doing diet-wise during your bulk. You take your maintenance calories, which should have increased thanks to your muscle gain, and then subtract about 500 to 1,000 calories from that. Now, when you start cutting, you're going to be very thankful that you started out your training on a bulk, because losing fat is far easier to do than building new muscle tissue is. Earlier, I gave an example that maybe you gained about 15 pounds on your bulk. Out of that 15 pounds, maybe 5 pounds of that was fat tissue. It took you 6 months to gain 10 pounds of muscle tissue. In contrast to that, on your cut, you're going to be able to lose about a pound or two of fat every week. Depending on where you're at, how aggressive you go with it, and a lot of other factors, during a standard 3 to 4 month cut, you can lose anywhere from 15 up to 30 pounds. So you bulked up, built that muscle foundation, and then you cut down to reveal it. By this point, you've probably successfully gone from skinny fat to looking at least somewhat jacked and chiseled. As far as when to stop cutting, just look in the mirror and decide if you like where you're at. Personally, I made the rule for myself that I don't really want to go below 160 pounds. If I didn't have this kind of rule set for myself, then I'd probably just cut until I'm satisfied. Then you just transition back into either maintenance or a lean bulk. Congratulations, you're now hot as fuck. None of your friends at school have shit on you. You take off your shirt, it's a canon event, you have a shredded six-pack, capped delts, amazing biceps, and you now get objectified by women and men alike. I recently just started doing one-on-one coaching, so if you want me to personally walk you through progressing in the gym, or even other areas of your self-development, it's the first link in the description. On top of that, go ahead and subscribe and follow me on all of my social media. That way, I can buy a Lamborghini, and just for the safety of your family.